everybody in the gallery along this evening. I'd also like to welcome our viewers at home who are watching the meeting via the live stream. Could I ask you all, please, if you could be upstanding, and Deputy Mayor Migdale, if you could please read the opening prayer.
Almighty God, we ask you to guide us in all our discussions to show goodness, honesty, understanding and wisdom in all that we undertake to do. May we respect each other's views at all times, and we ask all of this in your name. Amen.
Councillor Olo, could you please read the acknowledgement of country?
Thank you. On behalf of councillors, we would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, on which this meeting is taking place, and show our respect for the elders past, present and emerging.
Thank you. You can take your seats. Without prior approval, any recording of this meeting is prohibited. No action should be taken on any resolution of council prior to written advice from the council being received. So item 1 is our official opening. Ladies and gentlemen, I declare the council meeting of the 18th of February 2025 open at 6:30 p.m. 2, apologies, I have nil. 3, approved leave of absence. Councillors Michael Dudek, Elizabeth Ree and Lisa Thornton have granted a leave of absence for the period 5th of February 2025 to the 9th of March 2025 inclusive. Disclosure of interest. There was one disclosure from the Planning and Development Committee meeting held on the 11th of February, which is listed in tonight's agenda and displayed on the screen behind me. Councillors, are there any disclosures for this evening at the moment? No indication. We'll go to item 5, petitions. No petitions have been submitted. Are there any unverified petitions, councillors? No indication. I'll go to 6, responses to previous questions from members of the public taken on notice. We have nil. 7, public question time. And here we go. We will start with you, Maria Rosic, if you'd like to stand up. Now, when you come forward, that microphone there, just on the bottom right corner, the silver button, that's it. And all we need is your name and your suburb to start, and then you're welcome to ask your questions.
All right, Maria Rosic from Inglewood. So my first question is, Mr Mayor, are you aware of the extreme antisocial behaviour associated with the new high-density state housing complex at 157 9th Ave in Inglewood?
Yes, I am. I've been made aware by the councillors and who have alerted me to obviously the community interest in the last week or so.
Okay, my second question pertains to the City of Stirling's mobile CCTV tower. On the 23rd of January, a group of Inglewood residents met with the officers from the Department of Communities that manage 157 9th Ave. We were informed that it would be reinstated due to its efficacy in controlling antisocial behaviour, crime and unwanted visitors to the area. We were also told by our local member that this had been confirmed at a meeting between WA Police, Communities and the City of Stirling. It is now the 18th of February and the CCTV tower still hasn't arrived. In that time, amongst many other things, residents and their visitors have had sex on the balcony in the middle of the day in full view of 3 businesses, have terrorised patrons and damaged property at a local cafe with a wooden picket, have left drug paraphernalia in the car park in the laneway adjacent to the property, and finally last week, visitors to the complex have begun announcing to local businesses that the KGB has arrived in a threatening manner. So my question to you, Mr Mayor, is when can we expect to see the reinstalment of the surveillance equipment, please?
Thank you. Mr Quirk.
Through you, Mr Mayor, and thank you for the question. I have to admit I was unaware of the City's commitment to deploy the mobile CCTV. Certainly happy to do that. It is important to note, but that the mobile CCTV is in high demand, so it does rotate around the city quite often, and it certainly isn't going to be the solution to some of the issues you've experienced. So the community safety team are certainly happy to work with residents about lots of different strategies that we've deployed in similar circumstances. So I'm certainly happy to make contact and discuss that further.
Thank you. And finally, my third question, Mr Mayor, relates to the fact that the state government has created a huge problem for the Inglewood community by choosing to house unsuitable residents at 157 9th Ave. We're terrified and have been terrorised by the public housing residents and their visitors for the past several months, and we need your help. So if you will, please allow me to briefly provide context before I ask my question. I believe this whole situation would have been avoided by making the complex of mixed tenure, which is a combination of private, affordable and social housing. The City of Perth has 2 new high-density housing projects, one in Pearce Street and the other where Stirling Towers once stood in Smith Street, and they will both be mixed tenure with 30% social housing dwellings, which I believe is a great fit for both the local community and the housing tenants themselves. However, the new high-density housing project at 157 9th Ave in Inglewood is not mixed tenure housing. On the contrary, it's 100% state housing, and the disastrous effects on the community are glaringly obvious. The planned high-density housing project for 969 971 Beaufort Street will also be 100% state housing, which, given the effect that 157 has had on the community so far, I believe doing the same for a complex with more than double the occupancy of 157 9th Ave is extremely irresponsible. And I also think it's extremely unfair that the City of Perth was given the option of mixed tenure with 30% social housing dwellings and the people of Inglewood were not. It is for this reason that I would like to ask you, Mr Mayor, are you willing to write a letter to the Honourable John Carey, Minister for Communities, on behalf of the people of Inglewood?
Yes, I certainly am. I don't disagree with you at all.
Thank you. Because there are quite a few questions that I would like answered, I will read only a few here today to reflect the nature of the rest.
I'm sorry, you're only allowed 3 questions, but we'll certainly...
That's it? I'm done?
Yeah, but we'll take those in writing and we will still respond to you.
Okay, thank you.
Melissa Molinari. Yeah, we can pass them around to other people. We'll work around it. Your name and suburb to start.
Melissa Molinari, Inglewood. Is that better?
Yeah, that's fine, thanks.
So I have 3 questions that I would like to ask this evening. The first one is, why is communities using the historically ineffective model of 100% state housing tenants in a high-density complex featured last century for the 2 new high-density housing complexes in Inglewood instead of the more effective mixed tenant housing model, which the City of Perth will be using for their 2 new high-density housing projects in Pearce Street and Smith Street?
Thank you, and obviously that's a question we can certainly pose on your behalf to the Minister. I've got to be honest, I wasn't aware that that was still happening.
Thank you. My second question. The suburb of Perth and Inglewood are both inner city suburbs with very similar needs, infrastructure and amenities. Why do you believe the community in the City of Perth deserves mixed tenure housing and the Inglewood community does not?
And again, I can't answer that. Obviously, I understand the intent of the question and we'll certainly pose that as part of our correspondence with the Minister.
Thank you. And my third and final question for this evening. Can you demonstrate the specific examples how 157 9th Avenue Inglewood is benefiting the community of Inglewood? And how is it benefiting all the residents within the complex itself, other than keeping them off the streets? And why, after 8 months of use, using specific examples, why is it still not possible to have the complex at full capacity, given that there are more than 18,500 people waiting for state housing in Western Australia at the moment? And how come those people applied for accommodation through the Department of Communities?
Yeah, and thank you for that question. We certainly understand, again, the intent of your questions. There's many examples around the city where we've seen that historically, and they haven't been good outcomes, and we certainly understand that, and that's why I am unaware that that is a model that's going forward, where there's high density or high intensity of social and community housing all in one complex. It's well known now that you need lots of wraparound services and managed facilities, but a mixed tenancy is a much better outcome, so we're happy to take that on board.
Thank you very much.
Paris Fitzpatrick. Thank
Hi,
you.
I hope you don't mind me just reading it off my phone.
Oh, no, not at all. Just your name and suburb to start, and then you're welcome to start.
All right, I'm Paris Fitzpatrick and I'm also in Inglewood. I reside in the building directly next door, and myself and several of the other tenants in my building have been affected long-term by this building next door. For example, the other night I only got 2 hours sleep because somebody in that building was screaming and yelling the entire night. My 2 questions are based around the safety of the community, including the locals who live in that building and in the nearest surrounds and the businesses there. So the first question is, what immediate measures will the city take to ensure local residents' concerns about 157 9th Avenue are addressed, and can we have a timeline for those actions?
Certainly. I'll put you in contact with Mr Quirk. That's the immediate action, and he will let you know. We've got some similar situations where Mr Quirk can probably outline some of the responses.
As a starting point, I can confirm that the mobile CCTV will be deployed this week as a starting point. And it is reflective of a number of strategies we do put in place. As a starting point, we work really closely with Bayswater Police. That is important. Criminal behaviour is criminal behaviour regardless of your housing circumstances. Secondly, we work really closely with the Department of Communities and Housing in particular to deal with disruptive behaviours. They have a process to go through, and that isn't particularly helpful for residents, but we can help continue to put pressure on housing so that they do deal with some of those residents. Importantly, it's just keeping on top of these issues, and it's not something that the city can resolve ourselves. Again, I'm aware now that there was that meeting last week, and the officers involved have been involved in these sorts of instances in various places across the city. So we'll look to work with housing and WA Police to try and break the back of this issue.
Thank you. The next question. How does the city plan to reduce the crime and antisocial behaviour around 157 9th Avenue, and what specific steps will be implemented to guarantee the community safety?
Look, and I think
They somewhat answer each other.
I understand the intent. The city will certainly be in contact with the WA Police and meet with residents to better understand the concerns and try to find a solution for you.
Okay, I do have a third one now. What support initiatives will the city put in place to help local businesses affected by 157 9th Avenue, and by when can these businesses expect to see these measures?
Thank you. And again, look, the city has a very competent and significant community safety team. It's always important to note we have obviously community safety issues around the whole city of Stirling, which is why we have a large team. And we're certainly not WA Police, but we'll engage with WA Police and make sure they understand the issues and try to come up with a plan and communicate that to the residents so you understand what measures are taking place and when.
Thank you.
Kim Sewell. Just your name and suburb to start. Thank you.
Kim Sewell, Inglewood. I only have one question, Mr Mayor, so I'll keep it fairly short for you. Is Mr Mayor aware of the perceived lack of transparency and accountancy displayed by the Department of Housing towards the suburb of Inglewood? And by this I refer to, obviously, the social housing site at 9th Avenue, i.e. 157. That's my question, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And look, I'm not aware of how the perceived lack of transparency of the Department of Communities and Housing. We certainly try to work closely with them in many issues around the City of Stirling. There are very, I guess, legislative processes and procedures they go through with these sort of situations. It can be frustrating. It can be frustrating for us as a local government.
I understand
and I'm sure even more frustrating for the residents, but we'll engage with them and certainly make sure that they understand your concerns.
Thank you.
Michael Shade.
Well, when I consider all the other questions, all I really want to say is...
I'm sorry, I just need your name and suburb.
I'm
just
sorry,
for the
I
record.
beg your pardon. It's Mike Shade, or Michael Shade. I'm in Inglewood and pretty much dead opposite 157 9th Avenue. And it's been a wonderful learning experience, if you know what I mean. And I guess what we're finding out tonight, may I just talk rather than ask massive questions?
Just put a question at the end.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Love to see how things move on. Obviously, the city has got things that it can do, but it's very limited. It all comes back to state government and communities and making that work. And we appreciate you guys in that you do your very best, and you will continue to do so, I hope. Okay.
Yeah. Look, and thank you for that. Look, I guess it's important to note there are a couple of issues at play here. One is the planning outcomes that allow this sort of situation to occur or occur in the future.
Yeah.
And that's something that we can certainly work with. The community safety issues are, of course, an issue that we can work with. The thing that the City of Stirling can offer is certainly the strength of getting all those groups around the table. And that's something the team, I know Mr Quirk and his team are extremely good at. And I think that's something that hopefully will give the residents some comfort is getting all the right people around the table to work out a sensible solution.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, and thank all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa Thompson. And just your name and suburb to start. Thank you.
Lisa Thompson from Trig. Good evening, Mr Mayor, councillors and staff. Mr Mayor, before I start, could I please clarify answers from the last council meeting 2 weeks ago? Both you and the environmental staff provided a response in regard to a warning that the City of Stirling received from DWER about the illegal clearing.
Sorry, I just need to...
Sorry, am I too close?
No, I was just going to say, you've got 3 questions. So if you want to use them to do clarification questions, otherwise we can take those offline. We're happy to have a chat to you and clarify.
Okay. Sorry, okay, then to paraphrase, can I just say that the City of Stirling did not follow protocols to request a clearing permit because it was deemed not necessary. You believed it was deemed not necessary, believing it to be a case of translocating flora, vegetation and sand to a new site, and you said that of the material that was displaced was replanted. Given this response, may I ask the council for details of how many plants were relocated and to where?
Yes, you certainly can, and we'll respond to you in writing with that.
May I ask what protocols have now been put in place to ensure that the council will meet all the necessary guidelines for this type of environmental action?
Yes, Mr Murphy?
Yes, through you, Mr Mayor. In light of that recent incident, the city has a regular conversation with the department to make sure that we, are applying for the correct permits as required. So that is an ongoing conversation, and we're taking more advice from them.
Given these failings, Mr Mayor, it is imperative that this council acts on best practice guidelines, especially in regard to the Katera report, which appears to be lacking in substantive data justifying the significant reduction of a widely accepted buffer zone from 50 to 15 metres and not changeable by the city. My question, Mr Mayor, is can this report be peer reviewed and this buffer zone be firmly established with the state, DBCA and EPA prior to any further assessments being done?
Thank you for that question. The city will undergo a process where it goes to the EPA and DBCA and all those other affected agencies for environmental sign-off before this boardwalk is indeed built.
As we've asked last week or 2 weeks ago.
That is 3 questions.
Okay, then my last question is, do you take responsibility for overseeing a project that risks wasting significant ratepayers' funds, which is considered fiscal mismanagement?
Thank you for that. Look, the CEO runs the administration side of the building. I preside over the council, and as you know, I'm the Mayor of the City of Stirling. I certainly am accountable for any decisions this council makes and implements.
Thank you.
Matthew Inman. And just your name and suburb to get us started, thanks. And just before you start, sorry, I do just have to say that public question time has progressed past the allotted 15 minutes. So as Chair, I'll just rule to extend public question time to answer the further questions. Sorry, you may start now. Your name and suburb.
Matthew Inman from Trig. My questions relate to the boardwalk facility, proposed feasibility. In order to be compliant with relevant legislation and aligned with the intent and values of the city's Reconciliation Action Plan, as well as the Coastal Hazard Risk Management and Adaptation Plan, CHRMAP. Mr Mayor and councillors, what archaeological, ethnographic surveys and hydrogeological modelling is planned for the proposed boardwalk, the site, to first ensure adequate understanding of the likely impacts of a proposed project on this area?
Thank you, and we'll respond to you in writing on that one, if that's okay.
Is there anyone here who might have knowledge in that area?
No, that's
environmental or hydrogeological, ethnographic, archaeological?
Not around this table. That's why we'll respond to you in writing, sir.
Okay, so that my second question relates to the Coterra report. It says that the site does not contain any recorded Aboriginal heritage places. However, just because there is none recorded or no recorded sites, it does not mean that there are no sites in this area. So the only way to determine or ascertain whether there are heritage sites is for the city to conduct a full ethnographic and archaeological assessment with the traditional owners who have the right to speak for this country. So, Mr Mayor, will the city do this?
Thank you for that. Look, the city will, if it proceeds with the boardwalk, it'll undergo all necessary, I guess, I'm trying to work the right word, all necessary approvals through the appropriate agencies. The city also has its own reconciliation action working group and will certainly engage with all those stakeholders.
Right, thank you.
Damien Kelly.
Thank you, Damien Kelly, Scarborough. My first question is in relation to the site at 273 West Coast Highway, which was a site which on the 13th of February last year this council considered and rejected a proposal for temporary parking, but did vote unanimously to consider all options to increase parking within the Scarborough Beach precinct. And since then we've had an expression of interest that's gone out and closed on the 24th of January, which may make this land unavailable for potential additional parking in the future, which I find most concerning. So in response to feedback from our frustrated community, I commenced a petition for more parking, which is rapidly gaining signatures, and secured a $500,000 commitment from a future Liberal Metum Liberal government to get the parking proposal for 273 West Coast Highway back on the agenda. Can the council, one, reconsider the retention of 273 West Coast Highway for the provision of temporary parking? And that can be either as part of the expression of interest process or separately. And two, can it revisit other options within the Foreshore precinct to address this critical parking shortage?
So thank you for the question. And the short answer is yes, the city or the council can always reconsider things. There was a fair bit of support for the parking at the time, as you probably recall. Well, the issues around it was the significant cost, being a temporary nature, and also the fact that there's certainly not highest and best use for that site, notwithstanding there's community interest around parking. During the expression of interest phase, it means it doesn't have to be ruled out. There is possible, I can't imagine someone's going to start building tomorrow on it. So it can certainly be investigated by this council in terms of temporary parking, and certainly with many of the developments that are proposed or to be built in the future in Stirling, Dunes is a good example, the ability to then supply public parking back as part of the development.
Thank you. Other question in relation to traffic and safety around the Karrinyup Shopping Centre precinct. I held a community forum a couple of weeks ago about the matter, and one of the things that came out of that forum was the need for a sort of Karrinyup precinct infrastructure road safety plan, which, albeit with City of Stirling support, I think needs more state government horsepower. I wrote to yourself, Mayor, and also to various ministers. One of the ministers wrote back for the Minister for Road Safety and suggested that, my question was asking them and all the various state government departments to come up with this plan working with the City of Stirling. The response was that local road safety considerations, including those related to these developments, would be most appropriately overseen by the relevant local government. As such, I would suggest you raise these matters with the City of Stirling directly. Where does the buck stop in this case? And I guess, is it the City of Stirling's responsibility as you see it, or is it a state government responsibility?
The City of Stirling's around the Karrinyup Shopping Centre. Karrinyup Road is main roads, but the other roads are local roads, and the responsibility rests with us. I can probably get a bit of detail from Mr Murphy, who'll probably blame the planner.
Can I just add to that first, in terms of the actual not just the, okay, give your answer first, actually.
Mr Murphy?
Yes, yeah, through Mr Mayor. That is correct. So Carnap Road and Reed Highway under the control and jurisdiction of main roads, but all the other roads are local roads. So something that the city maintains and looks after.
Yes.
So if there was to be any changes to the roads, the genesis of those changes would come from the city, but obviously we would talk to main roads because of the intersections. And the other thing to say is main roads need to approve signs and lines, so they have an element of control. But certainly what you've been told is correct. It would start with the city as local roads, and we would take our ideas and our those suggestions forward. What I will say is we're aware of the community forum. We're also aware of the issues that have been raised. They've been brought to us by the ward councillors, and so we're already working on potential solutions and looking at the problems because we are aware of the issues that residents have raised.
Thank you. So just to be clear, it's in terms of the actual plan for the whole area, including Carnap Road, as well as the local roads, but also including Carnap Road and just general transport infrastructure. That's something that rests with the City of Stirling or the state government.
Not Carnap Road. So they are separate.
Okay.
And
but if you've got a plan
this
for
is where
everything,
I made light of it. But the reality is this comes about not because of our poor planning, but because significant regional centres are put where there's no future infrastructure growth planned.
Yeah.
So we can only work on the local roads.
Yeah. Okay.
Does that help?
Sort of. We'll follow it up sometime later with the correspondence. Thank you. Cheers.
All right. Mike Masiello. Just your name and suburb to start.
Mike Masiello, Trig. So this is with respect to the Boardwalk Environmental Assessment. A search under the Walga Preferred Suppliers, PSP 002, Engineering Environmental Technical Consultancy, lists 21 Walga Preferred Environmental Consultant firms. Of these 21 firms, the city specifically invited 13 firms to quote for the Boardwalk Environmental Assessment. The city even attempted to lure them with a $100,000 budget on the IFQ. You would assume the city must have been inundated with firms jostling for this work. Wrong. The city received one single quote by the successful bidder, Kotira Environment, which was only rated a 6 out of 10 in terms of demonstrated experience for the project. Even the lure of $100,000 on the IFQ was not enough to attract any other reputable, experienced consultants to get involved with this highly controversial proposal. My question, what were the key reasons 12 out of the 13 environmental consultancy firms, 94% that were invited, were not interested at all in submitting a quote for the Coastal Boardwalk Environmental Assessment, despite a generous budget of $100,000 being offered for this basic high-level desktop assessment?
Thank you. Look, they might have been doing other boardwalks.
Really?
I don't know. I don't know the answer. You'd have to ask them.
Is anyone from the, I see Ms Wollstonecroft's not here. Is anyone else that participated in that RFQ process here that might be able to?
And we're certainly not aware why they wouldn't. You would have to pose that question to them. It's not uncommon. I know with engineering projects at the moment, we quite often have to go out a second time to get one quote. It's the reality of the market out there.
Yeah, I'd appreciate some feedback on that process in writing.
Look, if there's any information we have, I commit we'll provide it to you in writing.
So any feedback that was given from those consultants that weren't interested in submitting a quote in writing, yeah?
Yeah, if we've got any feedback.
Fantastic. All right. In the interest of transparency for ratepayers, can the city please provide a breakdown of payments made or owing to Kotira for any works done on the Coastal Boardwalk Environmental Assessment and Report?
Thank you. We can respond to you in writing.
You're going to provide a breakdown in writing?
We'll respond to you in writing of what we can.
With the cost that was spent, ratepayers' money that was spent on the assessment?
Well, I can't answer that any other different.
You will provide in writing. Fantastic. Okay. Our group has multiple highly experienced environmental advisors, including the world-renowned environmental expert, Dr. Judith Fisher, that has completed significant environmental assessments works for the city in the South Trig Bush Reserve. These consultants have peer-reviewed the Kotira report and identified significant flaws, omissions in findings, arbitrary recommendations, which raises serious concerns over the level of competency of Kotira Environmental. I myself have noticed one of the two authors is a senior consultant with 2 years' experience and works a side hustle as a vet nurse. My question, given the significant risk exposure to the city with this proposal in terms of reputation, economic, environmental and social risk factors, does the city feel that trusting the flawed advice given by Coterra without having it peer review is best practice?
I don't have any concerns with the process.
So the city's happy to accept flawed, like multiple peer review have identified several flaws in the assessment, and you're happy to go with that?
It hasn't been peer reviewed. Let's be very clear. That is
Or is it going to get peer reviewed, or are you just going to run with what they've
I'm not
said?
going to argue with Mr. Masiello. The process is what it is. As you said, they came from the Walga panel. In your opinion, and I would urge you to be careful in your accusations against that consultant, but we don't have any concerns with the process today, and it will go through further process.
Okay, would the...
Sorry, that's your 3 questions, sir.
Is it?
Yeah. Happy to take the others, though. Look, you're welcome to send those through and we'll respond to you in writing. Brett Russell. Thank you, and just your name and suburb, thanks.
Brett Russell, Trigg. On the 15th of February 2022, Councillor Farrelly gained council support for the city to develop a plan for a walking and cycling facility between Scarborough and Trigg for safety reasons. On the 5th of December 2023, Councillor Papardi gained support for a workshop to be held about a boardwalk between Scarborough and Trigg for safer pedestrian access between 2 beaches. On the 8th of July 2024, the Mayor said on 6PR that the dual path was not that dangerous and that the danger was overstated. What is the real reason for the Council's support for spending $500,000 of ratepayers' money on a coastal boardwalk feasibility study?
Thank you for that question. I think Council's been very clear. It will go through a process and ultimately go to the community to ensure that there is community support for progressing with the boardwalk. Council's been very clear. They see many benefits with it, including having a coastal boardwalk that obviously provides accessibility through the dunes to walk between Scarborough and Trigg, and to provide that natural walk aside. And the other thing that is looked at is separation between those mobile things like electric scooters, bikes, etc., and people who just want to walk, perhaps walk with their prams or walk with their dogs. Certainly safety improvements are part of it.
How far advanced is the city on its design for a coastal boardwalk between the 27 erosion line and the threatened ecological community of Rottnest Pines in the South Trigg Beach South Trigg Beach Class A Reserve, and when will these designs be available to the public?
Thank you. They're not very progressed at all, sir. We envisage that in the next week or so, we will put up probably more like a board of different boardwalks that are currently in place around the country to show examples of what it may look like. They're only artist impressions and they're taken from other boardwalks. We would then propose where the possible route could be. It would still then go through several checks and the designs would then start after that. So there are no designs for it currently.
Given there have been 2 previous proposals to build a boardwalk through the coastal dunes between Scarborough and Trigg, neither of which have succeeded, why were councillors not given the opportunity to hear from environmental experts when workshops were held in early 2024 on the proposal for a coastal boardwalk feasibility study?
Thank you for that. Look, the councillors will make their decision based on all the facts. Sitting around the table, we're not environmental experts, and that's why we engage organisations like Coterra, and it will go through significant environmental checks through EPA and through DBCA and other agencies.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And Roland Hadley. Thank you. Just your name and suburb.
Roland Hadley, Woodlands. Good evening all. In the November 2024 Chart of Accounts, we notice that hundreds of dollars have been spent on Uber taxis. If this has occurred every month, the total amount may be several thousands annually. We ask, therefore, has the city a pool car park booking system, and does it consider it is both effective and efficient?
Thank you for that question. The city certainly has pool cars that many different areas use depending on their needs and their uses. The Ubers are also used, and quite often it's because multiple people are going maybe to the city and there's no parking or other occasions.
Thank you. Part B of that question. Our members seek details of who, what, when for a trip made on the 16th of November for $73.24. Your reference 1289. Also, on the 23rd of November for $64.24. Your reference 1244. A little work for Miss Hawkins, who is nodding off at the moment, I believe.
Careful, Mr. Hadley.
Is she? I don't know. Question 2. On 4 occasions, I have received emails 24 hours prior to the council meeting, all of which relate to the trackless tram project. We wonder if there is an ulterior motive at play. However, we thank you for the limited information received, and we ask if this information can be produced in these minutes, so all taxpayers, ratepayers, in the interest of transparency and accountability are made aware. We still seek the cost of 11 raised 32-metre platforms, which would have to be constructed, plus lighting, drainage, shading, security, which we could not locate anywhere in these reports. And where would these 5-6 trams be stored and maintained if this trackless tram project proceeds?
Thank you. I don't know.
Hopefully not. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. We'll now move on. I'll go to item 8, applications for leave of absence. Councillors, are there any requests for a leave of absence? No indication. Councillors, confirmation of minutes. Can I have a mover and a seconder to accept the minutes of the ordinary meeting of council held on the 4th of February? Move Councillor Kristovich, seconded Deputy Mayor Migdale. Just show of hands if you accept those minutes. That is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Good evening to those of you who are heading off. Announcements by the presiding member. I do have one, and it's regarding Scarborough Beach, named 8th beach, best beach in Australia. I'm pleased to advise the Scarborough Beach has been ranked in the top 10 beaches in Australia for 2025, with the nation's leading beach expert Brad Farmer AM hailing its redeveloped foreshore as the best in the country. Beaches are judged against his comprehensive 130-point beach assessment guide, which covers natural characteristics, culture, safety, facilities management and more. Mr Farmer announced his 2025 list, placing Scarborough Beach as number 8, praising it as a destination he called a national gem. Mr Farmer highlighted the natural beauty of Scarborough Beach, as well as the year-round patrols and accessibility, but he said it was a redeveloped foreshore that made it an absolute standout. Scarborough Beach was one of 2 WA beaches named in Mr Farmer's top 10 for 25, along with Little Lagoon near Denham. He also said that it'd be great if a trackless tram continued. No, he didn't. I'll move on to item 11, unresolved business from previous meetings. I have nil, and I'll now go to item 12, which is reports from committee. And we have the Planning and Development Committee. Note, councillors, item 12.1, 8.1 will be pulled out as it has a financial interest, not because it necessarily needs debate, but Councillor Kristovich will need to leave the room, so it will be pulled out. Are there any other items that you wish to pull out from the Planning and Development Committee? If not, we might move to that one and ask Councillor Kristovich to leave the room, and we'll start with 12.1, 8.1. It's a new lease at Scarborough, page 54. Confidential agenda page is 4. Councillor Proud as chair of the committee.
I move the item as per the committee recommendation.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that motion? Thank you, Councillor Giudice. Is there anyone opposed? Thank you. I'll put that motion to the vote. And that is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Mr Laforde, if I could just ask you maybe just to get Councillor Crispy in. Thank you. Thank you. And we'll now go to the balance of the reports. So those remaining reports, Councillor Proud, if you'd like to move.
I move the balance of the Planning Committee report.
Thank you. Councillor Perkoff has seconded those. So I'll now put to the vote the balance of the Planning and Development Committee. Thank you. That's unanimous, councillors. Members of the gallery and those viewing from home, whilst not very exciting, please note that all the remaining Planning and Development Committee recommendations have been adopted by exception resolution. So we've got item 13, which is reports for consideration in accordance with clause 4.24 of the meeting procedures local law, and I have nil. 14, notice of motions for consideration. 14.1, proposed notice of motion, Councillor Tony Kristovich, Karrinyup Shopping Centre traffic review. Councillor Kristovich.
Yeah, I'd like to obviously move the motion as shown on the table that the city undertakes a review of traffic, pedestrian and road safety issues for the roads surrounding the Karrinyup Shopping Centre and the findings of the review to be presented to council. I think it's pretty self-explanatory, so I won't give any further details than that.
Thank you. And do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Papard. Is there anyone opposed? If not, I'll put that to the vote. I think we've got one. That's it. That's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. 14.2, proposed notice of motion. Please note that 14.2 is a proposed notice of motion from the Deputy Mayor. It's been requested that this item be deferred until the council meeting on the 18th of March, so it is currently withdrawn until that time. So we'll go on to item 15, which is notice of motion for consideration at the next meeting. Councillors, do you have any proposed notice of motions you would like to raise? No indication? Councillor Hatton? Yes.
Mr Mayor, as shown on the screen, I'd like to raise this motion for consideration at the next meeting. The motion reads that the city undertakes a review of traffic, pedestrian and safety issues for the roundabout intersection of Clement Drive and Summerhays Road, Karrinyup, providing potential options and engineering solutions with approximate costings, including a more substantial roundabout that could improve traffic flow and pedestrian safety.
Thank you. And there's one there from Councillor Kristovich.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. Mine reads that the city undertakes a review of traffic, pedestrian road safety issues for Clement Drive, Karrinyup from North Beach Road to Pascoe Street, and the findings of the review to be presented to council.
Well, you got half the road each. Is that how it works? Right. Okay. We'll work on that. Councillor Ferrante.
Mr Mayor, I'd like to withdraw that and hold off on that one. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other proposed notice of motions, councillors? If not, we'll go to item 16, questions by members of which due notice has been given. We have nil. New business of an urgent nature at 17. We have nil. 18 matters behind closed doors. We have nil. That brings us to item 19, closure of the meeting at 7:12 p.m. Well, that was a quick one. Thank you, councillor.